Today I am spilling the tea and giving you all my hot takes on what it was like being a vendor for the very first time at a market. Now, the funny thing is I'm probably not going to complain about the venue or the promoter because that was me. So yeah, if that's something you're interested in knowing about, like all the behind the scenes on that, let me know in the comments and I will make a separate video or do a live or something like that and answer any of those questions, like about the administration or organization or anything like that. But I want to get cozy today and just talk about everything that I learned. So let's start at the beginning. Number one thing I learned is you can set up in your living room and take pictures of it and do that as many times as you want. And when you get to the venue, you're probably going to be like, why did I do this? I want to do it this totally different way. So my takeaway out of that is to be flexible. Don't be too stubborn as far as what you've decided. Be willing to make adjustments, be willing to pivot, and kind of bring, make sure all your stuff really just kind of can work together so that if you need different things in different places than when you first imagined it, that you can swap those out without any problem. Number two, I really think branding makes a difference. I was looking at a lot of the different vendors that were at our market, and there was definitely a variety. There was other first-time people like myself. There was people who'd done a few markets, and then there was people who I would consider like it's not their full-time job, but they do it a lot. I would call them pros. You could definitely tell the difference at this market between people who have done a lot of markets and who have not, because of the booth layout, because of the branding, because of the setup, like the displays. And I know that's something that you just have to keep working on over time, and you really need to educate yourself about and really try to figure out what is going to draw people in. Definitely felt like the tables where it was like everything was just completely even and everything was laid out on it. They might have had a nice tablecloth or a logo, but for some reason, like without the displays or without like different visual interest, I felt like it did have a less professional look, a little bit more of like a flea market type look, which is fine, but it seemed like maybe those tables got passed over for some of the ones that were pretty sharp. And mine was just kind of in the middle. I spent a lot of time on my branding and things like that. And I spent a lot of time researching, how to make displays look good. But my implementation, my execution just wasn't quite where it needs to be. So I tried, and that is what counts. I got my first one out of the, done and over with. So I feel like the next time I do something, I will be a little more prepared as far as what's going to work with my displays and products and all of that type of stuff. Now, I did shortchange myself in booth space. Both myself and my co-host did this. We took one space and chopped it into two for the both of us. So what I had practiced setting up did not work at all. And but we did this so that there was, room. More other vendors had more room. If we weren't the co-hosts, we wouldn't have had to do that. But I did learn, like, if you go too small, I tried to do a little bit more of a U shape. So I had two racks of clothing and then a table coming across and back. And my checkout stand was on one side of the table. But unfortunately, because the space was so small, if like two people were in my booth space, no one else could get in. And that really did hinder things during the busiest hours of the market. So definitely something I will work at, or put my cash register somewhere else. It wasn't a cash register, my little like cash out stand or whatever. I would definitely work on that for a small space again, to try to make it work a little bit better. Third thing, have help. And I did have help, and that was fantastic. So, if I needed to go to the restroom or get something to eat or, anything like that, I didn't have to worry about my booth being empty or about having to ask, the person beside me to watch it, that type of stuff. It was very helpful. And it also just helped a little bit with some of the like overwhelm, because it was a little bit overwhelming when things were crazy busy and the place was just packed and people were all over. you know, it kind of go like I could feel myself like wanting to shut down a little bit because it was so intense of an experience. It was nice just to have that moral support. And then like the last hour and a half that we were open, it was very, very slow, which according to other vendors is completely normal. But I can see where if you were alone, you know, that might be a little bit lonely. You would probably be tempted to start packing up your stuff early, even if you're not supposed to. We didn't have a rule about that at ours, and some of the vendors were definitely taking down and packing up and leaving. And that's just something we're in the future when we, you know, if we do that again, and I will talk about this in the other video if you want it. Let's just say, to summarize, I'm going to quit yapping about this. You know, we would in the future make sure that that was part of the vendor agreement, that you don't pack up till the end. Again, like I said, I can see where if you were by yourself and you're like, man, this is a lot of work, I wanted to get this done, it would be very tempting to start tearing down early. So definitely having a buddy there, a booth buddy would definitely make the time go smoother. I happened to, since this was in my community, I knew both of the people on both sides of me, so that wasn't an issue. I still could have talked to them, but especially if I'm going somewhere else, I'm definitely going to want somebody there with me. Little side note here, speaking of tearing down early, I did have a gal at my market who also crochets. She does a lot of amigurumi, and she sold a ton of stuff. Her booth space was amazing. Her displays were great. And she does a lot of big markets. Like, she doesn't really do small ones like mine, but since I knew her, she did it. But one of the things she had mentioned is that a lot of times organizers will take note of who is packing up early, who stays, who helps clean up, like that type of stuff. And that did make sense to me. I was like, yeah, because there are people who stick out now in my mind as an organizer on that portion of it. And I'm like, oh, they stayed longer than anybody. They helped clean up. They kind of went above and beyond. And you know, they are probably going to be the first ones on my list, you know, when I have something else that I will get that information to. So side note, not something I specifically learned as being a vendor, but sort of. I feel like the juiciest part of anybody's market is going to be the sales. I will just flat out tell you, I live in a very rural area in Iowa. You know, the cost of living isn't super high. You can't really price stuff super high. So there is that. I want to obviously make enough money to make everything worthwhile. But going into it, I know, like, I'm not in a metropolitan area. I'm not in a big city. I'm not in an affluent area, which would, you know, make things easier to price a little bit higher. So I had a variety of prices. The highest priced items I had were 3 cotton virus shawls. I had those marked at, I think, 70 or 75. None of those sold. I didn't necessarily think they would. I love them. I think they're beautiful, but I don't, you know, I don't see a lot of people besides me in my area wearing shawls, but I just thought they were very eye-catching, and I wanted them there at my booth to kind of help bring people in and just, you know, show kind of what I'm capable of and that type of stuff. I sold, as far as like larger crochet pieces, there's a video, and I will link it. It's not a great video because I'm not great at tutorials in all honesty. I'll put it up here, and it is about my crochet bolero, I think, what do I call it, like a mesh bolero possibly. And that is super easy to make. I'm kind of working on a newer version where instead of doing one panel, it's actually just 2 panels that I put together. I think that'll be easier. But I sold out of those, and I also did a couple of those, or I did one of the t-shirt ponchos. It was amazing. I switched it up. I didn't do a granny stitch like all the ones I had seen. I had like converted a little bit of a virus stitch. And it was just a shirt. Of course, I didn't get a picture. I apologize. That's something I learned. Take more pictures. But it was like a shirt I had thrifted. It said Nashville on it. And I thought it was very pretty. I liked how the yarn worked out. I had that priced at $55. That sold right away. I had several people, like, right off the bat, like in the first probably half an hour, be like, oh my gosh, look at that. And then, yeah, one lady she snatched it up. So, and I was like, I knew who she was. I'm glad she got it, because I like her. And, that was a piece that I really liked. So it was kind of hard to let go. But I am going to probably work on a few more of those. And I have got, a small little tote, not a tote, a small little like bin full of t-shirts that I've gotten and I can work on. I sold a tremendous amount of tiny jewelry. These earrings right here, they're little crochet hearts. These take, maybe in total 15 minutes to make, 20 minutes when you're looking at like putting, you crochet it, you have to put the earrings on. I did get these little, I don't know if you can see them, the little clear backs there. And, I got the little paper. I should have put the Howdy stamp on the top. I didn't think it through that the earrings would cover that up. So I will do that the next time. But I pretty much sold out of these things. I had these marked at $4. That may have been a little too inexpensive, especially because they all sold. A friend of mine who lives in the Twin Cities up in Minnesota, which again is, a lot more populated, is more affluent. She had bought some earrings that were kind of similar up there, and she paid $10 for them. So I don't know if I would get $10. I don't really know if they're worth $10 because they are so quick and easy, and the supplies are like next to nothing because, the crochet thread, you don't use hardly any for this, and it's not terribly expensive anyway. But this was a great seller. So I just found a crochet heart pattern on YouTube that I liked and went with it. It wasn't for earrings. It wasn't for crochet thread. It was just a regular, I don't even remember who it was. It might have been Play Hooky with me. I like a lot of hers, but these were a great seller. Definitely, I felt like even at $4, they are pretty darn simple, and I still felt like I made money on these. I actually thought they were a pretty good money maker. So, I might bump the price up to $5 or $6 at the next one and see how it goes. I would probably go to $5, and then if they still all sell out, I'll go to $6 and continue on, I guess, until I get to 10 if they keep all selling out. Since we're talking about money and payment, I will say I think it is important to make it as easy for people to pay you as possible. So I did not accept checks. Some people did take checks there, but again, like I said, super small town. If it would have been like one of my friends' moms if they were like, "Can I write you out a check?" I would have taken it. But it didn't even come up. Nobody even asked. So I had Venmo, and I had a little sign up that they could scan. And that was nice too, because as people were like bringing stuff up to my little checkout area, I could see them already scanning it. So I knew it was going to be Venmo. I knew it was going to be pretty darn easy. The little thing just pops up that you get paid. It's awesome. So, there's pros and cons with electronic payments, but I thought it worked really well. And a lot of people did opt for using Venmo. I also signed up for Square. I have an iPhone, and you can do like the tap to pass, I think is whatever it's called, or whatever. But when you put the Square app on your phone, I did get the little Meg stripe thing, but I didn't even end up using it because I was able to, with the Square app on my phone, just hover the card over. It was a little slow, I think, because so many people were all in that one area using so much internet. I don't know if that's how the internet works or not. I'm not an internet scientist. But it did go a little slow. It wasn't like near as instant as like when I'm at work and I run a credit card and it's like, boom. It did take a little bit for it to go through, but it was a great option to have because some people just have credit cards or debit cards. I did obviously take cash, and, I made sure to have, I didn't know how many people would have cash, but there was actually quite a few that came with cash. So I made sure I did have a lot of ones, have a lot of fives, and, some people were giving me 20. So, I had ones, fives, tens, and 20s. I didn't mess around with coins, and I was kind of like, you know what, if somebody pays cash, like, no tax or whatever, like I'll just eat that because I don't want to have to do that, and that's their discount. Because there is credit card processing fees and all that. So I'm like, that's just how I'm going to handle this, because I'm not going to deal with coins. It was so busy, and since I had the other duties of also organizing and making sure vendors, had what they needed and all that stuff, I did leave my booth multiple times. So my helper was there to do that. It kind of made it though. So it was a nice surprise, because in my mind, I was like, I think that I sold about $150. But I kind of forgot to take into consideration the stuff that she rang up when I was busy doing other stuff. And so when I added up my cash, subtracting the cash that I put in the cash box, don't make that mistake, my cash, my credit card sales, and my Venmo, I had a little over $400. So I feel like for my first market, that was pretty darn good. You might have a different opinion. I know a lot of it depends on what you paid for your vendor fee, but I definitely recouped my expenses, so I was thrilled about that. And any more that I may possibly do for the end of the year, I will know, my displays are paid for, that type of stuff. So I broke even at least, and I did make a little bit of a profit there too. So, well, yeah, I definitely did. Because I really didn't spend that much in displays and stuff like that. I would say definitely be a slightly better prepared than I was, because I was so distracted by the organizer details. I seriously overlooked something that's always so important to me. And I'm always thinking about, I'm always like, I'm going to need a beverage. I'm going to need a snack. And I was trying to get so much other stuff done that I left the house without a beverage or a snack. And I was like, oh, there's food trucks. But guess what? Those food trucks were insanely busy. So I was able to get some kettle corn from a lady, and I think somebody got me a pop from the grocery store or something. I don't even know. But definitely don't overlook your basic needs as far as that stuff goes, because you might not be able to sneak away. There might not be anywhere, available for you to get something. So definitely, if I am going to be a vendor anywhere else, I am going to make sure that I have water, pop, coffee, probably some cashews, apple, a variety of snacks. Which leads me to a second little tidbit. Have a tiny little garbage can at your booth as well, so you don't have to run around trying to find a garbage can, or stick a bunch of your trash in your pockets, your purse, or in your cash register. I don't know about other types of vendors, but since I do crochet wearables, wear as much as you can. Create as much attention to your product as possible without looking ridiculous. I mean, don't wear one of everything and have a whole crocheted outfit, obviously. But definitely wear your product. If you have someone at your booth with you, have them wear some of your product, just so that you can show people what it looks like on. And the last thing that I am going to point out that I did, and I'm glad I did, is I originally was going to crochet some can koozies. And I started, and I'm like, I hate doing this. To me, it felt like it was too time consuming for the price point it would be. But I was like, I know that there's people out there who know me, who, would love to support me, but they're not going to wear crochet. And so what I ended up doing was I designed on Canva. I had taken a picture of a granny square that I did. It was a sunflower granny square. And then I put my the name of my business, one of the words above and one below. I actually got that scanned onto some can koozies. So, they weren't super high end. I was selling them for $3 each. I think it cost me about $1 to have it made, per koozie to have it made. But I sold quite a few of those as well. And yeah, it was people who, they're friends and acquaintances, and exactly who I thought, people who, just aren't going to wear crochet, but the idea of it, the idea of helping me, that type of stuff. So get a little creative. Everything you do doesn't have to be something crocheted, if that makes sense. I would definitely in the future get like buttons or different things where I again have some crochet on it, but have it be a different type of item. I can't think of anything off the top of my head like that besides like buttons, maybe bookmarked, anything like that, stickers, where it is my crochet, but it's not a crochet item. If all these big box stores can make fake crochet stuff and fake knitted stuff, I don't see that there's anything wrong with printing out my actual granny square and getting it stuck on a koozie. Something to think about. You might disagree. Will I do this again? That was the big question everybody wanted to know. Like, are me and Haley, my co-host, going to do this market again? We have not confirmed that yet. I mean, no lie, we're probably gonna, but it is only gonna be an annual thing. We are not doing that semi-annually. That is just way too much work to be both a vendor and a organizer. I didn't get near as much stuff. I got about half the stuff crocheted that I wanted to have done. And since I ended up with half the booth space, that was fine. And I'm really pleased with my $400 in sales. So I should add too, I don't think I really bought any yarn for this. Like, I used stuff from my stash. I did buy a couple things of crochet thread, but again, those were like $2 a piece or $2.50. And there's so much on there. I mean, those are going to last me a while. I can do a lot of earrings out of those. So it wasn't really a big purchase, but yeah, other than that, I didn't buy any yarn specifically for this, because I had a bit of yarn. I would love to do some other shows. And I was thinking about doing a product drop around Memorial Day of a little bit more like patriotic themed items. We'll have Memorial Day, and then 2 weeks after that there's a town festival, and their theme this year is like red, white, and blue suede shoes. So obviously it's going to be kind of patriotic and Elvis, I guess. But I thought, people, if I am dropping product in my town 2 weeks before, people could very well want patriotic things to wear to that, since that's the theme. And then 2 weeks after that will be the 4th of July. I mean, pretty much all summer, I feel like people are a little more down with the patriotic stuff. So I started working on that, and I just went through any yarn I had that I could use, red, white, and blue. I asked my friend, I was like, hey, can I trade or buy any patriotic yarn from you? And she's like, just take this. So, I got a nice sized sack, like a trash sack, full of some different yarns, like all acrylic. There was a little bit of cotton, but I'm like, this is great. But I got sidetracked because my friend Haley was like, hey, do you want to do this market for Mother's Day? It's the Saturday before Mother's Day. But I'm like, you know what? It is close by. I'm not sure if this lady's even charging a vendor fee. I guess I should find that out. But I did like stop and hijack all of my patriotic projects, and I'm going to go ahead and work on a few select projects for Mother's Day, but I am mostly going to take some of the other stuff to the market that I have. Like, I have a couple cowls that I like still have, and I might make a couple more. I did some infinity scarves like out of cotton. Those sold well, so I might try to get a couple of those done, because that was pretty darn quick. So I just kind of made a little list, but I will take the virus shawls again, because again, I feel like they're eye-catching. This market will be outdoors, so different than the one market I've done that was indoors. So I'll kind of have to figure that out, figure out what works, but this will be a good opportunity to try out an outdoor market without a lot of pressure. It's going to be a very small market. It is not going to be as busy as ours was. So I think it'll be a good opportunity, one for me not to have other responsibilities, but just to learn kind of what I need to know about being outside. So I think I am going to make a couple of the those like little coasters that look like a little bouquet when you when you like fold them up and then put them in something. And I thought maybe I would get like a couple like teacups maybe or something like that, like cute china teacups maybe, possibly. I don't know. Maybe some little terracotta flower pots. I don't know. But you know, to put those coasters in. And I am going to, I might take a break from the hearts and I might just make some flower shaped earrings and make several of those, because I think those would go well for Mother's Day. And the place that this is at, they are selling, it's like it's not a florist, but I think she sells like bulbs and shoots, different things like that. I really don't know what I'm talking about. It is like plant and floral base. I think it would be fun to kind of, I mean, I'm not going off brand from my stuff, but I'm still going to use the same yarn I have, the same colors, all of that stuff, just dig into my stash, but just go a little into the flowers. So hopefully I can get a bit of that worked out in the next couple weeks. I am excited about that. I will, of course, let you know what I sold, what didn't sell. If I didn't sell anything, who knows? But I'm really happy with this first market. And I really think that if it's something you've thought about doing, it is worth giving a try. But if you do, you know, push yourself. Like don't do it halfway. You know, set some goals, set some standards, what you want everything to look like, treat it like a business, and really see what you can accomplish. Like I said, my goal, since I didn't know how this was going to turn out, I was like, I will do my first one here in April, and then I will continue to do them when I find them locally for the rest of the year. So, you know, maybe only 3-4 more, but I'm like, I will give myself through 2026 to make back my money that I've spent on displays, and also to just see if I like it or not, see what sells. Like, it's an experiment at this point, but I thought it was important to invest in certain things to make it professional. And I do think that helped me sell. Let me know if you have any questions. I want to thank you so much for talking yarn and crochet and markets with me. I appreciate you so much. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.